What on earth is a geometric sequence, and how do you write the equation of one? So here's the first example in this video. Here we have a geometric sequence, and our goal is to write the equation of this geometric sequence. So a geometric sequence is kind of like an arithmetic sequence, which you maybe have not heard of either. An arithmetic sequence is basically like if you have something like 5, 10, 15, 20, right? You're adding a number each time. So each time you're adding 5. So adding 5 to 5 gives you 10, plus 5 is 15, plus 5 is 20. That's an arithmetic sequence. So a geometric sequence is the same exact thing, except you're multiplying every time. So for example, this is a geometric sequence because here to get to 8, you're multiplying by 4. And then to get to here, you're multiplying by 4 again, and then you're multiplying by 4 again. Now, knowing what number that you have to multiply by each time is really important for a geometric sequence. And if you didn't already know that, if you couldn't tell that this is multiplying by 4, then all you have to do is take two numbers that are next to each other, like 8 and 2, and divide them. So you take the second number, 8, divided by the first number, 2, and this will give you 4. And that tells you what you're multiplying by each time. So to write the equation of a geometric sequence, we need some sort of format that we can just plug things into. And for example, like when we're writing the equation of a straight line, we use y equals mx plus b. We always use this format, and then we just plug in m and b, and then we have our equation. Now for geometric sequences, we also have a format like that where we can just plug in numbers. So the format goes a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. I know this sounds really confusing, but let's go ahead and explain what each of these things mean. So a sub n is always going to mean whatever number we're on. So for example, if we had a sub 3, all that means is we're talking about the third number. So for example, a sub 3 in this case would be 32. And a sub 4 would be 128. So in that case, it makes sense that a sub 1 just means the first number. So a sub 1 in this case is 2. Now r, this is probably the most important part, r is going to be whatever number we're multiplying by. So remember we said that to get from this number to this number, we're multiplying by 4 each time. So this means that r is going to be equal to 4. We'll get to that in a bit. And then n minus 1, remember n is whatever number we're on. So for example, if we plugged in the fourth number right here, then we would plug in 4 for n, and we would get r to the 4 minus 1, or r to the third. So for writing an equation, a to the n, and then this part n minus 1, those are both going to stay the same because the idea is you're going to plug something in for n and then see what you get, like once the equation's written. But the two things that you do need to replace in this equation are a sub 1 and r. These are the two things that you need to replace with whatever number is applicable in this situation. So let's go ahead and rewrite our equation here, except we'll replace a sub 1 and r with what we know. So a sub 1 is basically just the fancy way of saying the first number. And in this case, our first number is 2. So instead of a sub 1, we're just going to put the number 2. And then r here, what is r? Well, r is the number that you multiply by each time. And as we figured out before, each time we go to the next number, we're multiplying by 4. So for r, we're going to put 4. Now we're going to put r in parentheses because if we didn't put it in parentheses, then this would say 24. And it's not 24. And then the n minus 1 is going to stay the same. So there you go. This is our final equation of our geometric sequence. So here's another example. We need to write the equation of this geometric sequence just like before, but this time we don't know the sequence. We only know that the fourth number in the sequence is 24, because that's what a sub 4 means. And we know that r is equal to 2, which remember that's the number we're multiplying by each time. So in a way, it almost seems like it's going to be easier, because we know that r is 2, and remember that the only things we need to replace are a sub 1 and r. So we already know that we're going to replace r with 2. But the hard part is figuring out what a sub 1 is, or our first number. So there are like two main ways that we can do this. I'm going to show you the way that I think is easier, and then I'll also show you what teachers are probably teaching you. So the way that I think is easier to understand is to just think about it logically. We know that the fourth number is 24. So we have our first number, and then our second number, and then our third number, and then our fourth number is 24. And we know that we're multiplying by 2 each time. So to get to here, we're multiplying by 2. To get to here, we're multiplying by 2, And to get to here, we're multiplying by 2. So all we need to do is just work backwards to get to our first number. And remember that we can just do that by doing the opposite of multiplying by 2. So to figure out what this number is, instead of multiplying by 2, we'll divide by 2 because we're going backwards. And if we work backwards, then we divide by 2 and we'll find our number. So if we take 24 divided by 2, you can put that in your calculator, that's going to give you 12. And then if we divide by 2 again, that's going to give you 6. And if you divide by 2 again, that's going to give you 3. So we now know that our first number is 3. Now, the other way that you could have done that, and the way that I feel like textbooks usually teach you, it's a little more complicated, but basically you just plug in what we know into this equation. So we know that a to the 4 is 24, so we'll just plug in 24 equals a to the 1, which is what we're trying to solve for. And then we have r, which we know is 2, to the n minus 1. And remember that n is going to be 4 because we plugged in the fourth number. So this is going to be 4 minus 1, or 3. And then we solve for a1 like it's a letter. So 2 to the power of 3 is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And then we have multiplication here. So we divide both sides by 8. And the 8s are going to cancel out. And this is just going to give you a sub 1 equals 24 divided by 8, which is 3. Which means that our first number is 3. So you can do whichever way you think you understand more. I personally think that this way, where you just work backwards, is the easiest way to understand what it is you're actually doing. So we know that our first number is 3, and we know what r is, so we have everything we need to write our equation. So remember that a sub n is going to stay the same. A sub 1 is just our first number, which is 3. R is just what number we're multiplying by each time, which we already know is 2. And then the n minus 1 is going to stay the same. This is our final equation of our geometric sequence. A sub n is equal to 3 times 2 to the n minus 1. So there you go. You now know how to find the equation of any geometric sequence. And now you can sound super smart to your friends when you talk about how you've learned about arithmetic and geometric sequences. But writing an equation of a geometric sequence is just the first step of learning about them. The next step is to find geometric means. So if you want to learn how to do that, you can watch this video right here. And as always, if you have any questions about this video, go ahead and leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to answer your question. Thanks for watching.